After the success of the Super Nintendo, Nintendo would need to use this momentum to create the next best games machine. Around this time was getting towards the mid 1990s, and with new advanced technology, it now seems possible to start creating 3D games. Now begins the development of Nintendo's next console. Development first began in 1993. During this, Nintendo has partnered up with Silicon Graphics to start work on the next console, codenamed Project Reality. During more development, the console would be announced to be called Ultra 64. However, there was issues with the name Ultra, as Konami had the rights to the name, and therefore Ultra 64 would have to be changed. This ended up being the name we all know today as the Nintendo 64. Named after their powerful 64-bit processor, the Nintendo 64 was surely destined to become the best console of the next generation. However, there was a newcomer that beat Nintendo, releasing their own 3D 32-bit power console. This was the Sony PlayStation. The Sony PlayStation beat Nintendo to the market of 3D gaming by 1.5 years and already cementing themselves as the top console to buy. Nintendo seemed to not let this bother them and urged consumers to wait for their own console by releasing advertisements saying how CD-based consoles are slow and how their 64-bit technology is better than Sony's 32-bit system. This, however, didn't stop everyone buying the Sony PlayStation. The Nintendo 64 finally came out in Japan on June 23rd, 1996, and the launch was quite successful. There was around 350 to 500,000 units sold within the first 3 days, and many reviews were very positive, talking about how they prefer it over the Sega Saturn and even the Sony PlayStation. There was 2 launch games for the Nintendo 64, depending where you're from. The main 2 games that were from launch was Pilot Wings 64 and the legendary Super Mario 64. The Nintendo 64's life cycle was pretty good. It eventually had games like Zelda Ocarina of Time, Donkey Kong 64, GoldenEye 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and countless more. Sadly, the Nintendo 64 didn't sell as good as Nintendo wanted. With selling under 33 million units, one would think, what went wrong? There was a couple of reasons why it didn't sell well, such as the long release date. Nintendo took forever to release the 64, coming out in Japan on the 23rd of June 96, September 29th in North America, and then in Europe, March 1st, 1997. This was quite bad as the PlayStation came out around almost 2 years before this, and the Sega Saturn around the same time as the 64 too. Therefore, consumers had already bought a console, and only true Nintendo fans would have waited for the Nintendo 64. The use of cartridges as well really hurt Nintendo, as all their competitors were using CD-ROMs. Well, there was benefits using cartridges like little to none loading times. CD-ROMs offered so much more, like large storage capacity, and are cheaper to manufacture. The Nintendo 64 cartridges hold between 8 and 64 megabytes of storage. That's really about it with the Nintendo 64. To many of us, it's one of the best consoles ever made, but selling around 33 million units, was it really? That's it for today. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about the system. Until next time.